Being able to cook faster is a superpower in the kitchen. It makes cooking fun, allows you to whip up better meals, and it gives you time back to spend on other things you love. Despite what you may have heard, cooking faster doesn't require you to spend years in a professional kitchen or to develop Gordon Ramsay level knife skills. And in today's video, I'm going to share the 9 tips and strategies that have helped me become a much faster cook. My first tip is one that is often overlooked, and that is to always read the recipe you're making before you start cooking. And when I say read, I don't mean take a quick glance. I mean read. Take the time to understand all of the ingredients and steps. Recipes require you to comprehend a lot of information, like how to slice your vegetables, what heat level to use, how much tomato paste to add, how long to simmer something. And if you're trying to digest all of that information while you're also sauteing something on the stove, you are very likely to miss a step or two, or worse, ruin the recipe. And as a result, you'll have to redo some of your work or pause the cooking process entirely instead of smoothly working your way through the dish. I have even messed up cooking my own recipes because I did not read the recipe I wrote myself. I have burned vegetables because I forgot to turn down the heat. I have overbaked muffins because I wasn't looking at the oven temperature. And I have even forgotten to add rice to a rice dish. Oh, I was supposed to add the rice. And if you don't read the recipe in advance, you won't be able to take advantage of our next time-saving tip. And that is to mise en place. Mise en place is a French term that simply refers to prepping your ingredients and getting them organized in one place before you start cooking. In addition to ingredients, I think it's also helpful to take out the equipment you'll need unless it's already within arm's reach. Doing some upfront preparation to chop your ingredients and get your pots and pans out actually saves you time because it makes you so much more organized. It also makes it much less likely that your garlic burns while you're digging through the pantry for an ingredient you forgot to take out. I like to start my mise en place by simply grabbing a sheet pan and filling it up with the ingredients needed for the recipe. Then I get started on prepping the ingredients. It really helps to have a set of nested bowls in various sizes like this so you can store your ingredients separately. If you're gonna add some ingredients to the pan at the same time, say carrots and celery, go ahead and put them in the same bowl so you have fewer dishes to wash. And I store everything I've prepped on a half sheet pan or a quarter sheet pan depending on how many ingredients are involved. And that way everything I need is in one contained area. I can even move with my little mobile workstation to the stove as needed. One important note is that the quicker a dish cooks, the more important it is to do all of this prep up front. Otherwise, something is likely to burn or overcook. So if I'm making a stir fry, for instance, I have every single ingredient prepped, including the salt, before I turn on my wok. If, however, the recipe happens in stages and there is some downtime in between steps, that's when I like to combine mise en place with our next technique, which is multitasking. And just to clarify, multitasking does not mean trying to chop your onions and tomatoes at the same time. Instead, in this context, multitasking refers to identifying opportunities where you will have some passive cooking and using that time to accomplish something else. Exactly how much multitasking you can accomplish will depend on your comfort level in the kitchen. So I am definitely not comfortable enough to multitask when I'm cooking minced garlic because it will burn within a minute. But if I am sauteing onions over medium heat and they need 10 minutes to get nice and golden brown, I will definitely use that time to do some multitasking. Maybe wash and slice my kale and measure out some spices while still stirring the onions every couple minutes. So how do you identify these opportunities for efficient multitasking? It goes back to our first tip. When you read the recipe closely, it's easy for you to spot if and when you will have pockets of downtime to work on something else. The next strategy that has allowed me to cook twice as fast is to get and stay organized in the kitchen. I want to preface this by saying I am by no means a Marie Kondo in the kitchen, or really in any area of my life. But there are a couple of organizational tactics I swear by that have made cooking quicker and minimally stressful. First, I have made it a habit to keep all of the kitchen tools I use regularly in easily accessible places. I use these large canisters to store all of the tools and utensils I use on a regular basis, and they sit right next to the stove so I can grab any of them within 3 seconds. For any tools that don't make sense to leave in these canisters, I make sure to store them in one area of one cabinet that I can easily access. Things like a vegetable peeler, offset spatula, bench scraper, and mandolin. That way, if I'm in the middle of cooking, I can still grab any tool within 10 seconds, even if I didn't closely read the recipe in advance. In contrast, for tools I don't use that often, like a rolling pin, I'm totally okay with those being a little more difficult to get to. I also applied this technique to my pantry. I tried to put as many items as I could in easy to see and easy to read containers. And I put all the ingredients that I cook with regularly at the front of my pantry so I can quickly and easily grab them. And for things I don't cook with as often, like wheat berries or sushi rice, those go towards the back. And while I'm in the middle of cooking, I also try to organize my workspace as efficiently as possible. So that means using the kitchen counter closest to the stove so I can quickly pivot between my cutting board and pan as needed, and leaving my compost bin or trash bowl next to my prep station so I don't have to constantly walk back and forth to the trash. Speaking of a trash bowl, my next tip is to clean as you go. It might sound paradoxical, but cleaning as I cook has actually made me a faster cook in a couple different ways. First, and perhaps most obviously, it saves time when I am done cooking. Instead of a mountain of dishes in the sink and messy counters, I have pretty minimal cleanup to do most nights. And while cleaning isn't the same thing as cooking, it is part of the total time investment required to make a meal. Second, having a clean, clutter-free workspace means I can cook more quickly because I spend less time maneuvering around messes and more time focusing on cooking a great dish. In contrast, cooking in a messy kitchen is stressful, and when I am stressed, I am much more likely to make mistakes, overlook ingredients, and lose focus. Now that we've covered the benefits of cleaning as you go, let's talk specific tactics. Of course, you'll want to take advantage of the multitasking opportunity. So if your pasta is boiling on the stove, use that time to put away ingredients you've taken out, wipe down your counters, and start loading your dishwasher. Another technique I like to use is to keep a quarter sheet pan next to me when I'm prepping or cooking, and anytime a utensil or tool gets dirty, I place it on the sheet pan. That way it stays out of my way, it's kind of contained in its own zone, and it doesn't clutter up my workspace. Then when I have some downtime in a recipe, I'll start adding these dirty dishes to the dishwasher. If they're not dishwasher safe, I'll try to wash as many by hand as I can, or at the very least soak them in some soapy water. Then I can get back to cooking with a clear workspace and a clear mind. One tool that is super useful for cleaning as you go is a bench scraper. It allows you to quickly and efficiently pick up all your scraps and toss them in your compost bin or trash bowl. I also use my bench scraper during mise en place to transfer chopped ingredients from my cutting board directly into my pan. Much easier and safer than using a knife. And that leads me to our next tip, which is to invest in time-saving tools and gadgets. Now, the tools I'm about to list are not required to become a faster cook, though they are certainly useful. Well, except for the last one. That one is 100% necessary. First up, a digital scale. Once I started measuring ingredients using a scale instead of cups, I was amazed that I could not only measure things more accurately, but also more quickly. You add your ingredient to a bowl, you hit the tare button, and then you keep going. No more fumbling with dry and liquid measuring cups or having to wash them later. A scale is especially helpful for baking, but I use mine in all kinds of ways, including to measure out herbs and to make salad dressings and sauces. Speaking of which, if you make your own salad dressings at home, which I encourage you to do, it's delicious, I recommend getting a simple set of glass jars like this. You can add all of your vinaigrette ingredients to the jar, shake it vigorously to emulsify, and voila, you have your salad dressing. Plus, you can store the jar in the fridge so you don't need to get another dish dirty. One of my favorite time-saving tools is a mandolin. This handheld one costs less than $20, is quick to clean, and it helps you thinly and evenly slice vegetables and even garlic cloves very quickly. But if you want to keep your fingers intact, be sure to wear a cut-safe glove. Another tool I love using is a timer. Setting a timer while my soup is simmering or my pasta is boiling allows me to focus on other things for a little bit without worrying about whether the soup is going to overcook or the pasta water is going to boil over. I like using this tiny little timer, and sometimes I also rely on my Amazon Echo and my Apple Watch. The last optional tool I'll mention is a printer. Not really a traditional cooking tool, but it is so much more efficient to read a printed out recipe while you're cooking than trying to constantly scroll on your tiny phone screen. I like to use a standing clipboard like this so I can review the recipe without using my hands. The one tool that is non-negotiable is a good quality, sharp chef's knife. If you are working with a poor quality knife, or even a good quality knife that happens to be dull, you're going to be a much slower cook, and you're at much greater risk of cutting yourself because a dull knife is more likely to slip. So get a good knife and make sure to sharpen it regularly, or have a professional do it for you. My next tip to become a faster cook is to utilize batch cooking. Batch cooking is all about making larger portions of a meal or a component and storing extra portions for later use. It's especially helpful when the food you're batch cooking can be frozen for a future date. For example, my creamy cauliflower soup freezes beautifully, so I often like to make a double batch and freeze it in smaller portions. During a busy week, I can defrost the soup in just a few minutes, and all I need to do is finish it with some lemon zest, chili flakes, and olive oil. That way I can still enjoy a delicious, nourishing meal in very little time. To be clear, it does take me longer to cook a double batch, probably 20 to 25% longer with the extra prep and greater volume of ingredients. But for that extra time investment, I am getting way more food. So on a per meal basis, I'm spending a lot less time. And as a more general point, too often when we are thinking about cooking faster, we take too narrow of a focus. We think only of technical skills, like how fast can you chop an onion or peel a potato, while ignoring some other meaningful factors. Along these same lines, one topic that I think is very under-discussed is meal planning. I have a whole video on how meal planning can change your life, but at its most basic level, meal planning is simply pre-selecting the recipes you want to make in the upcoming week. And if you want to use meal planning to become a faster cook, you'll want to select recipes that contain shared components and overlapping ingredients. That way, on a Sunday, you can prep a big batch of a sauce, cook a large pot of lentils, and throw together a crispy condiment, and you can use all of those components in 3 different meals during the week. As you can imagine, doing this pretty dramatically cuts down the total cooking time required for each recipe. There is one problem though. While meal planning saves you time during the cooking phase, it actually adds time during the planning phase. The process of choosing recipes that contain multiple shared components and that actually taste good, that takes a lot of time. And our goal is to reduce the total amount of time spent, whether that's on cooking, cleaning, or in this case, planning what to cook. Which is why for the last year, I have been working super hard on a brand new weekly meal planning service that does all of the work for you. Each week you get a new plan with an exciting menu of flavor-packed vegan recipes. The different meals share components and ingredients. The grocery list is already written for you, and there are meal prep instructions so you can take some high-impact prep steps that will save you so much time during the week. You can even try out our meal planning service for free for 7 days by going to rainbowplantlife.com/meal plans. I've also left a link in the description box below. My next tip is perhaps the most paradoxical, and that is to not worry about cooking faster. I know that might sound a little ridiculous given that this entire video was about how to cook faster, but just hear me out. When I'm worried about how fast I'm cooking, I'm never fully present in the moment. And when you're not present in the kitchen, you are much more likely to make mistakes, like forgetting to uncover your pot, overcooking something to the point of burning it, or perhaps even ending your relationship with your partner. So by all means, do the stuff we talked about earlier. Read the recipe closely. Look for opportunities to multitask and clean as you go. Invest in time-saving kitchen tools and meal plans. But when it comes time to actually cook, don't worry about cooking fast. Instead, be mindful of each step, whether that's chopping, sautéing, or plating. Enjoy the process, and I promise you, time will fly. All right, that was it. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!